There is no such thing as a minor lapse of integrity. Tom Peters. We live in a world that's obsessed with the highlight reel. We're constantly making sure our best moments are on full display to anyone who might be watching. So it's natural to want credit for our hard work. And there's a comfort in knowing that a job well done is going to be recognized by our peers, our bosses, or even our families. But if we're being completely honest with ourselves, the greater majority of our lives doesn't happen in front of an audience. It happens in the quiet, mundane moments when the chaos stops and we're left all alone with our own choices. Those ordinary moments when you could send that email, but with a little less effort because nobody's checking it. The workout you could skip because nobody's working out with you. A shortcut on a project that probably won't get noticed. Or the story you tell where you soften the edges just enough to make yourself look a little better. We tell ourselves it's not impacting anyone, or it's a temporary pass because we're stretched too thin. Except it isn't. Because the moment you accept a lower standard, just because there's no audience, you aren't actually tricking the system. You're negotiating away your own foundation. You're signaling to yourself that your integrity is an act, a performance put on solely for the approval of others. Your character shows up in the moments when nobody's recording. But there's something freeing about that. If your character is self-policed, then nobody can take it from you. The standard you hold, it stays yours. It's about recognizing the invisible decisions we make each day and asking a simple question. If nobody ever knew what choice I made, would I still make the same one? So when you think about cheating a little bit, cutting a minor corner, it never feels like a defining moment. It feels like a localized decision. A quick compromise made just this once because you're tired, or you're busy, or you're under stress. You tell yourself that tomorrow, when it's really important, I'm going to flip the switch and go back to performing at my best. It's a comforting thought, but it ignores how your brain actually functions. Your brain doesn't have separate filing cabinets for your public life and your private life. It doesn't look at a sloppy piece of work and say, oh, this is just a private moment, so it doesn't count towards your overall standard. It doesn't work that way. The brain is simply a pattern recognition machine. It registers the repetitions. Every time you let yourself slide because nobody's looking, you're training your default setting. You're hardwiring a brand new, lower baseline of execution. Think of it as muscle memory for compromise. If you default to cutting corners when the friction is low and you're all alone, that's the same behavior your system will default to when the pressure kicks in and you have an audience. You can't suddenly demand flawless discipline from yourself in a high-stakes environment if your normal pattern is teaching your brain how to compromise in the lesser moments. The habits you build in isolation don't stay hidden. They form the invisible floor you stand on each day. And when that floor is uneven, everything you try to build on it eventually starts to lean, even if you're trying your hardest to keep it straight. And the danger of lowering your guard in private isn't that your world deteriorates immediately. In fact, it's the exact opposite that happens. You skip a step, you submit a project that's 80% complete. We all know what I'm talking about. Those times when you're just done and you say, it's good enough. Or what about something as simple as walking past a mess you know you should have cleaned up? For the most part, no matter what it is, nothing immediately happens. Tomorrow still comes, your boss doesn't call you in, and your business doesn't go under. That lack of immediate consequences can feel like a green light. A subtle reassurance that you got away with it and everything's fine. But this is where the real risk hides. Private shortcuts don't penalize you right away. Instead, they generally operate on a time delay. They compound quietly in the background. You aren't just skipping a single task. you're introducing a microscopic flaw into your foundational habits. When you make a habit of deleting the small, unseen details of your day, you're systematically weakening the structural integrity of your entire routine. You won't notice the damage today, or maybe even next week. But 6 months from now, when you're facing a genuine crisis or when life demands 100% of your focus and energy, that foundation will most likely crack under the pressure. You'll wonder why you couldn't hold the line, especially when it mattered most. All the while complaining and conveniently forgetting that your habits have been chipping away at your own resolve in private. And failure will show up as the inevitable result of 1,000 tiny compromises that you thought didn't matter. It's the erosion that takes place when you choose convenience over the standard, one small moment at a time. Additionally, it's worth acknowledging the real impact when we remove the audience from the equation. Anonymity has a strange way of acting like a mirror for our true intentions. When you're working out in the open, discipline comes with a lot of built-in benefits. There's the praise from your team, the recognition from your peers, or maybe just the personal satisfaction of knowing you're being perceived as somebody who has their act together. Those external rewards are powerful motivators, and they make holding yourself accountable feel good. But what happens when you don't have someone watching? What about when you're up at 2 a.m, all alone, you're trying to finish that project? Or say you're dealing with a tedious task that most likely nobody else will ever see or appreciate. There's definitely no applause waiting for you at the finish line. Those are the moments where you find out whether you actually care about the standard or if you just care about the social credit that comes from looking like you do. If your drive for excellence is completely tied to an audience, it's not actually discipline. It's marketing. It means you're just an actor performing for public consumption. True self-leadership means your rules and standards don't change based on who's watching what you're doing. It's about having a set of internal boundaries that are independent of external validation. When you can look at an empty room and still execute at your highest level, you're no longer relying on the world around you to keep you on track. You become the owner of your choices, regardless if someone notices your effort. However, when you get home or you close your office door, the environment shifts because these private spaces are meant to be our sanctuaries, the places where we can finally let our guard down and relax. But that natural drop in psychological defense creates a compounding weakness. The moment you step into an environment with zero external friction, your brain defaults to trying to optimize for comfort. Suddenly, the abstract future value of your long-term goals feels so far away, while the immediate relief of making an excuse feels incredibly close. It's that little voice that tells you, you've had a brutal day, you've earned a break, and that doing less than optimal job, of course, just this once, is completely justified. In that quiet space, the excuse seems perfectly reasonable. It doesn't feel like a compromise. It feels like taking care of yourself. And it's funny how easily we negotiate with ourselves when there's no outside voice to challenge our logic. We become adept at defending our weaknesses and rationalizing why our current circumstances make it okay to let the standard slide. But real discipline isn't about ignoring reality or pretending you aren't exhausted. It's about recognizing that your feelings in that moment are just temporary signals, not permanent commands. And overcoming that internal friction when you're alone is about refusing to let a momentary craving for comfort rewrite the rules you set for yourself when your mind was focused. Now, while it's easy to focus on the risks of cutting corners, there's a flip side to this dynamic. When you choose to hold the line in the moments of isolation, something significant happens to your internal wiring. Every time you finish a task fully, fix that mistake that won't be obvious to anyone, or push through a difficult moment when no one is around to appreciate it, you're building a strong, unshakable layer of self-trust that nobody can give you and nobody can take away. This is where true self-confidence comes from. It's not manufactured by public praise or professional accolades. It's built from the internal knowledge that your standard is completely self-accountable. When you know that you don't compromise in private, you've already proven your capabilities to the only critic that actually matters, yourself. You're no longer carrying the anxious burden of pretending to be someone you're not. You don't have to worry about being found out, because the person you are in public is the same person you are when you're all by yourself. This internal alignment is the ultimate leverage point for self-leadership. It turns discipline from an exhausting daily battle into a natural expression of your identity. When you master the unseen moments, you aren't just managing your behavior. You're establishing an internal baseline that keeps you steady, no matter how chaotic or demanding the world around you becomes. At the end of the day, the rules we set for ourselves aren't there to impress anyone else. They're simply the metrics of how we choose to exist when the rest of the world isn't looking. It's easy to get caught up in the pace of everything around us, tracking the visible wins and adjusting our performance based on who's watching. But when the noise fades, the only thing left standing is the reality of what you did when you had the choice to do less. It's the little decisions that never make it onto a resume or into a conversation that actually define your boundaries. They're the real foundation beneath everything you build when there's an audience. So next time you find yourself in that quiet space, with the option of taking a shortcut that nobody else will ever notice, or an excuse that sounds completely reasonable, just take a second to look at the choice for what it really is. It's not just a task or a minor detail. It's a moment where you get to decide who's actually running the show. The standard isn't a goal you reach for others. It's a personal agreement you keep with yourself. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes with me. Until next time, stay sharp, stay grounded, and keep showing up.